I don't wanna fall down. I ain't finna fall down. Fourth quarter, shorty, I'ma ball out. Don't go to work, baby, call out. Ain't no way, no stall now. I'm finna ball out. Fourth quarter, shorty, no call outs. Don't go to work, baby, just call out. In the bedroom, all out. Perks on the counter, I can't wait to take them. Blunts on the counter, can't wait to face it. Bad little bitch, yeah, she be my favorite. All my songs, they all on her playlist. I don't really know how to say it, but I'ma say it. I don't really know if she take it, but she can take it. I don't slow it down unless I'm in the Matrix. Presidential brain, that bitch like Sarah Palin. Here it go. I'm not the same nigga that I was a year ago. I thank God every day for it. It's a miracle. In the trap house singing nigga spirit.
What is going on? Welcome on. One day later than we expected, but hey, we've got a kick butt show for you here for UFC Vegas 81. Sadiq Yusuff, Edson Barboza. If you're not excited about this fight, my guy, my friend, the long shot legend, Matty Tanner, and I will help get you excited for it. Matty, how you doing today on this Wednesday?
I'm doing good, bro. Yesterday was rough for me. Contender Series beat me up. I didn't really give out any official plays on that, but the degenerate in me had to bet almost every fight, and it didn't go very well, if I'm being honest. So it was a rough one. And then last week, man, the main event, Bobby Green, like I still don't know whether we were just counting Bobby Green out or if Dawson's chin is just so suspect. Like, what even happened, bro?
Yeah, well, let's talk about it. Let's move into the recap from last week because we have a lot to dive into. Some good, we kind of forget the good, some a little bit bad. First of all, let's talk about something good. You and I both liked Joe Pyfer by submission. You ended up going round 2, round 3 instead. Had to wait out that first 5 minutes where Pyfer looked pretty good. But Joe ended up showing us his well-rounded skills. A little bit of the striking in round 1, submission in round 2. You and I both cashed from that fight from Joe Pyfer. Any thoughts on that co-main event and how that went?
Yeah, my thoughts are there's no worse feeling in the world than putting on your card Joe Pyfer. I swear on my life, I wrote this down on my card. Joe Pyfer, round 2 submission plus 3,100, and I got talked out of it. I'm not going to mention it wasn't you, Austin, but it was a friend of mine. I'm not going to mention who, because at the end of the day, it's my fault. I gotta hold my ground and never let someone talk me out of something. And I had Joe Pyfer round 2 submission plus 3,100 is a top 5 hit of all time for me. I mean, I've had 3,300, 40-1. But 31-1 is no joke on a straight bet in the UFC. And I ended up taking the round 2 in round prop at plus 600. We hit that on Joe Pyfer, but there's no comparison between a plus 3,100 and a plus 6,000. I hit that plus 3,100 bet, and I'm up big on the night, and nothing else matters. Bobby Green knocking out Dawson doesn't matter. The rest of the card doesn't matter. And I swear, a minute into that fight, when Pyfer went for that standing submission attempt, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I left this off my card. But he ended up getting it done in round 2. He looked great. Those leg kicks were getting to him for sure. But other than that, he looked really impressive in that fight. And I'm rooting for Joe Pyfer. I like that dude. I think he's going to have a good future.
He's a lot better than I thought he was coming off the Contender Series. If you remember, he suffered a knockout to Dustin Stoltzfus in his first try. I was kind of iffy about him, but I'm sold now. So there's the good. We had 3 huge favorites on last week's card. Drew Dober, you and I both liked. Joe Pyfer, you and I both liked. You and I also both liked Grant Dawson. We weren't really sure how any one of those 3 could have lost as a parlay. We got our answer. Grant Dawson starched in 30 seconds by my guy, friend of my podcast, Bobby King Green. I've loved him for years. I didn't see it. I didn't see it coming. A 30-second knockout, but he tested Grant Dawson's chin, and Grant frankly flunked the test.
Yeah. I couldn't believe he went down that easily and then shelled up. It was pretty insane, honestly.
Yep. I think all we want to do is we want to take how we lost and what we did wrong and apply it moving forward so that we can not make those same mistakes again. I did not put enough stock in when Bobby Green fought Al Iaquinta and he starched him in the first round. That was a very durable guy that went the distance with Khabib, if you remember. Very well-rounded technical guy. I didn't put enough stock in that finish to say that he had round one upside, because we talked last week. Dawson's 46% striking defense, not good. Had some chin issues with Ricky Glenn, wasn't great, but we kind of both determined Bobby Green kind of a pillow hands type of guy. Anything but pillow hands from him. Bobby Green is a top 10 lightweight in the UFC in 2023. It's absolutely wild.
Make it make sense, bro.
Yeah, so let's dive into this card, and we'll get previewing. Hopefully we have an even better card, and we have nothing but hits to talk about, just like we did with Sean Strickland about a month ago. We would love that. I love this first fight up, actually, from a value and a betting perspective here. It may not be the most exciting fight, although I have beef with the chat last week for clowning my interest in women's strawweight with Kovalkiewicz and Belbita. Those ladies trade in a phone booth. I don't have that same hope for competitiveness here. We've got Emily Ducote and Ashley Yoder to kick off the card. Emily Ducote coming off a tighter than maybe expected fight against Lupi Godinez, went the full distance, didn't go her way. She had the beating at the hands of Angela Hill, so she's on a 2-fight skid. And we haven't seen Ashley Yoder in a long, long time, since 2021 in July, when she battled Jinyu Fry, ended up losing that decision. These ladies both kind of outside the rankings on the fringe of the women's strawweight roster. Maddie, do you have any strong thoughts on this fight? Because I do, because I'm a terrible nerd.
I'm going to guess that you think Emily is going to dominate this fight.
I think Emily should be minus 1,200 in this fight, and she's only coming back at minus 320. Emily is a prospect that I've known and been following since before UFC, and she's graded out better in UFC analytically than I would have thought, given that she's fighting Hill, she's fighting Godinez. Her per minute, like her striking success rate is negative 1.74. She's taken a lot of damage, but when you look, 46% striking accuracy, 54% striking defense against her competition, both building blocks. I think the most important thing in this fight, 90% takedown defense. If Ashley Yoder can't get it to the ground, I have no idea how she wins it. So I really love Ducote in this spot, even though I'd be laying minus 320 with women's MMA.
Yeah, I hear you. Literally in my notes, the first thing I've written down is Ducote 90% takedown defense. I'm with you on this, but the question is it a TKO or is it a unanimous decision?
That's another thing is, I don't know if we have shady sportsbook props yet. FanDuel, of course, no props available on this guy yet, but Ducote's going to a decision in 3 straight, 2 losses, 1 win. I love her inside the distance prop here because she has powerful hands. She's got submission skills, which we really haven't seen on display in UFC. 4 regional wins by submission, never really had a chance. I don't think she'd want to take this fight to the ground, but I do think she could get a TKO. These two are so badly mismatched on the feet outside of Yoder, kind of a long reach advantage, 6-inch reach advantage. She's got these lengthy limbs, but this is someone who went toe-to-toe with Miranda Granger. Like, her level of competition is as bad as it gets at women's strawweight, and she has a losing record. I could not feel better about Ducote in this spot. I think it's totally to get her back on track.
Ducote by KO TKO plus 425.
That's phenomenal. Those odds are phenomenal. I think I'd be okay skipping the submission since we haven't seen that, and it doesn't really feel like her win condition. 4-1 there feels like a gift for someone who's minus 320 on the money line.
Oh, Ducote by sub, says Phil. Now round two KOs 12-1. Round 3 is 18-1. You think this would be an accumulation of damage, or do you think that round 1 is live?
I think so. We haven't really seen Yoder. If at first memory from me, we haven't really seen Yoder starched. I'm just checking her UFC logs quickly to make sure I'm not forgetting anything.
Yeah, she hasn't been finished in the UFC yet.
Yeah, so she's been pretty durable, but at the same time, you look at her level of competition. Angela Hill, not a lot of power, but had a plus 43 striking differential. Lavinia Souza, Ronda Marcos, Jinyu Fry. Ducote just went toe-to-toe with Lupi Godinez. We saw how badly Lupi Godinez just beat the crud out of Elise Reed. Elise Reed with 30-27 Ashley Yoder. So that's the level of competition gap that we're talking about here. Maddie, I think if I do any justice to this first fight, I'll have round 2, round 3 KO on your card because I really like Ducote to accumulate a lot of damage here.
You already know it's going to be on my card. A little quarter unit sprinkles.
See, look at that. We're already past Grant Dawson. Got some vibes going in the first fight of the card. In this next fight up, we've got another pretty heavy favorite. So we're kind of, Beaver said in chat, first fight of the night, kind of sketch. These early prelims are kind of sketch. Weird stuff happens. I think most notably of that, you remember when Dean Barry fought Mike Jackson, one of the worst UFC fights I've ever seen. Mike Jackson was like a plus 800 underdog, got a disqualification because Barry couldn't stop kicking him in the nards. It was one of the weirdest things that you had. See, my boy Stacks is with me. He'll have Ducote.
I like that.
I like that
Round
exact
three head
call.
kick.
That would be legendary. But Chris Gutierrez, we were going to talk about him last week in an insane fight with Montel Jackson. I loved that matchup. I really would have been torn to choose a specific side in that. Now
I think I would have been on Montel there.
I think so too, just because Gutierrez had some wrestling deficiencies against Cody Durden, but Alatang Haile is a very different matchup for him. Alatang coming in, just took down Chad and Helliger a couple times, decently competitive decision that he did control against Ann Helliger, also knocked Kevin Kroom's head to Jupiter as well in the fight before that, but Gutierrez is a guy that sent Frankie Edgar into the shadow realm for his retirement. So thank you for that, Chris, for ruining all of our moods with such a somber knockout. But it was very impressive. And then he goes the distance with Pedro Munoz. Doesn't go his way, even though he had a plus striking differential. Pretty close fight. This guy throws nasty leg kicks. I remember Vince Morales' leg being a purple ball because of the leg kicks Gutierrez was delivering. He is a huge favorite here, Maddie. I've actually got him now at FanDuel at minus 400. Sharps are all over him here. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think minus 400 is insane, though.
Interesting.
In this matchup, I don't think he should be that big of a favorite at all. So I was actually going back and trying to find some more footage on Haley here, and you know what came up when I searched on YouTube? He fought Sonya Dawn 9 years ago. Have you ever seen that fight or saw it? I think he lost the decision in that fight. So
interesting.
Again, I don't know how relevant that is in 2023, but I watched a little bit of footage on him. I do think he's a live dog. I don't think, I think you would need at least plus 300 on him for me to want to sprinkle here. But I mean, his resume is not terrible. He was able to go he went the distance with the Bakary. And he's coming off of a decent win here. Yeah, it was a unanimous decision. And then the fight before that, he had that first round knockout. So I don't know, man. Chris Gutierrez concerns me sometimes. That Pedro Munoz fight was a little eye-opening, but at the same time, maybe it's a good, I would say a buy low spot, but
yeah,
this at minus 260, go ahead, throw them in your parlays, but minus 400, like, come on, that's ridiculous.
So here's the problem with Gutierrez, right? If he's minus 400, Alatang Haile never finished in UFC. You said he went the distance with Song Yadong 9 years ago as well. I consider him a very durable guy. He was on the wrong end of a beating with Casey Kenny as well.
Yeah.
Lasted through it. And I don't think Gutierrez is going to have a much more lopsided effort than that, even though he's a very good striker, has the leg kicks. So you're kind of looking toward like a decision equity type of thing at minus 400, which is absolutely nerve-wracking given the state of MMA judging. So I wouldn't blame anybody for passing on this fight. Something that I wonder maybe we could start with the show next year. I think it would be so cool if we did like a UFC survivor pool. So you pick one favorite a week and see how long you can go. If that's something like our chat would be interested in, I could try to find somewhere we could host one. But like, I think Gutierrez would be a good pick for like that type of thing. But putting him in a parlay at like minus 400, I think it's a little bit of a concern. Gutierrez is a tough guy for me analytically. He's got such sparkling efficiency, but a lot of it is because leg kicks boost your striking accuracy considerably. So I like El Guapo. I think he does get this done, but I don't feel like sweating it at minus 400 in a parlay somewhere.
Yeah, I mean the fight to go the distance is sitting around minus 250.
Yeah, exactly. And then all of a sudden now you're paying minus 400 for the judges to get the fight right. And what if Alatang Haile has the center and Mike Bell sees it a different way? It's a horrifying experience of proposition.
Now, what do you think if you could get Chris around minus 140 on a decision? Do you like that, or do you not love that number?
I would think anything close-ish to even money would be intriguing. My main concern here is that Alatang and him have been fighting at such different competition levels. Gutierrez starched Batgari, right? And then Alatang Haile went the distance with him. My concern with going for that decision prop, I think I'd much more likely sprinkle a knockout. If minus 140 is implied on a decision, I just take a tiny little nibble, maybe at a 2 or 3 knockout instead. I wouldn't feel comfortable with that just because of the level of competition, how confident I feel about Chris.
I just don't put a ton of stock into that knockout because it was like I don't know, man. I just think if he fought Bakary 10 times, I mean, it was like a spinning. What was it? A spinning.
It was like a spinning back fist
spinning
type
back fist. Yeah, it
but
was a spinning
Bakary
back
was
fist.
also slowing down considerably.
Yeah.
Like Bakary won that first round. It was almost a 10-8. He just came out with his hair on fire. And then Gutierrez was starting to get his rhythm and then landed a fluke thing. So I don't know. And
Yeah.
Bakary kind of fizzled out of UFC as well. So
Right.
you know,
True.
I will say I was a little less impressed than with Gutierrez's competition level than I thought I'd be. Like going the distance with Felipe Colares. It's like, and then he gets Frankie Edgar, who's kind of washed. Pedro Munoz is the guy that everybody in the bantamweight rankings calls out because he's just kind of easy to deal with, doesn't provide a ton of power, doesn't provide a ton of wrestling. So I think the verdict is still out on Chris as like a ranked guy, but I feel good about him in this matchup.
Oh, I like it.
So let's move on here to another one that I'm way more excited about than consensus. I don't really understand this betting line, and I hope you can talk some sense into me. If not, how about Russian Ronda? Irina Alekseeva comes out wild on the microphone. She got a knee bar on Stephanie Egger in her UFC debut. It was like a 3-1 underdog when Egger was expected to roll her. We think grappler versus grappler. Now, we've seen Stephanie have some shortcomings with jiu-jitsu before, so that wasn't a total shock to me, but she's taking on a debutante here that a lot of people are high on from England. Melissa Dixon, 3 finishes regionally, very strong striker according to all reports. I don't really understand film as well as some other people. Dixon's the favorite here over a proven UFC winner. I respect Stephanie Egger in some fashion. Weird line. What are you thinking here, if anything, about this odd women's MMA fight?
Yeah, I mean, look, this fight did not go the distance is plus 115.
Interesting.
So that tells you a lot about this fight here because, usually a women's MMA fight the fight to not go the distance being plus 115. I don't know. Like Melissa's, I watched a little footage on her. She's powerful. She's accurate. But this chick's a sambo. Like this chick, I don't know. I'm so torn on this, but I almost feel like she could go out and finish Melissa in this first round.
Yeah, I will say it's intriguing. Alekseeva's the first time we saw her was not the Egger fight. She actually was a win in Bellator as well. So she's been fighting at what you would call a higher competition level than Aries FC. And Alekseeva got the win via decision in Bellator, got the knee bar in the first round. She's never been finished professionally. I see some people talking about how she leaves openings in her striking. I'm not very good to decipher that because Stephanie Egger's stand-up is really bad and Alekseeva had a 62% striking defense. That'd be a 95th percentile or better mark in this division. So I think it'd be a lot to say Melissa Dixon's going to knock out Irina Alekseeva. I think this line is so short to go the distance because Alekseeva was so aggressive with that submission attempt, 6.9 submission attempts per 15. I like Russian Ronda here. I don't know why she's the underdog. I really don't understand it.
Yeah. Now, so do you think like a ground and pound could be live in this spot? Because Melissa does have good jiu-jitsu, right? And I looked at the odds. So Irina by knockout is plus 1100.
Interesting. Wow. That is crazy for I will say she's very aggressive with submissions. That's definitely her preferred method. But Dixon, of course, never submitted. Dixon's actually never been submitted professional or amateur. She has 4 amateur losses, none of them coming via submission. So all of a sudden, what happens if we get into a situation where her submission defense holds, but Alekseeva is controlling the action on the ground? Ground and pound? I mean,
100%.
Stranger things have happened. So I know you like the long shot darts. I'd probably go by submission because you get it at I've seen some other lines coming back around plus 550, 6-1. That's good enough for me. But if you want to get a little greedy, I wouldn't blame you, brother.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to see what even the inside the distance has to be decent here.
Interestingly, this line moving toward Dixon, so I hope I get an amazing because we had plus 106 here from yesterday when our great production team pulled the slides and the odds for us. She's now plus 122, so sharps are moving this toward Dixon. I tweeted, by the way, I think if you just fade fight week line movement, you'd retire in UFC because I've gotten so much closing line value in this sport, and it doesn't mean a goddamn thing. Like my lady will get starched in the first round, so I'm not scared of the line movement here. I think sometimes big brains overthink themselves in this sport, whereas Alekseeva, much better resume, obvious path to victory. The Dixon's experience is not a very high level. So Alekseeva, if I can get her plus 150 money line, that's probably plus 250 inside the distance. I'm loving it.
So Irina round 1 submission plus 1200, and then round 1 KO plus 1800.
Wild. Because Stephanie Egger, my complaints aside, she got caught with an easy armbar by Mayra Bueno Silva. That was that fight where did she tap? Did she not? Egger's a good judo practitioner and a good ground fighter in UFC, and Alex Siva made her look silly. So I'm very intriguing. Exactly.
Yeah.
The Algio line moved toward Alex. Alex became the favorite. What happened? Bill Algio dominated every second.
That was one of the strangest movements I've seen in a long time.
Agreed.
The fact that it completely flopped in a day, like middle of the week, like, and then Algio looked so good in that fight. Like he was controlling the whole fight. He looked so slick on the feet. That was just a weird fight.
Yeah, it definitely was. But so we're kind of on the same page there. I imagine we're going to be on the same page here. I will be the first to admit I've not dug a lot into this one because I wasn't going to take the underdog here no matter what. Because we got my guy T-Rex, Terence McKinney. If you give him an undermanned, inexperienced debutant, he showed that he'll absolutely crush them. He walked down Mike Breeden, blasted him. I think it was, if it wasn't last month, it was in August, late August at the Luke A card. So we saw T-Rex not too long ago. He actually stepped in on short notice here. Then his opponent pulled out. So now we've got a debutant on the other side here. I guess my question is just to T-Rex or to not T-Rex here, Matty?
Yeah. So even the sites that have early props available for all of these fights have nothing on this fight.
Right.
Like I think these books are petrified to even put a line out here. Cause like the first thing I want to see is what is the under 1.5? Like what is that number going to be? Because I mean, what price would that need to be for you to not touch it?
Minus 300 or so, because like McKinney has a killer be killed mentality. We saw in the Nazim Sadiqov fight, he was trying to take it a little bit slower, ended up getting caught with a submission in that fight. But like, I think McKinney's at his best when he just goes balls to the wall from the beginning.
I agree.
And
he's got his confidence back too.
He did get his confidence back. And like, I look at Morat, he's kind of a Northeastern type of guy, like New England cartel type of guy. That's the same kind of area that brought us Nick Aguirre and a lot of guys that I haven't had a very high opinion of. Now, Calvin Cater, Rob Font, the exceptions. I don't feel that scene is very strong. Can we check? Has Brandon Morat fought Jay Ellis at any point? Because Jay Ellis roaming out there with 100+ losses in the New England regional scene. Aguirre, I think, beat him twice. So I don't think he's fought Jay Ellis. Otherwise, he'd have another win on his resume. But McKinney is a problem for a lot of lightweights to handle. I think if he was more aggressive, he might have gotten Sadiqov out in the first round as well, knocked out Breeden, had Drew Dober badly hurt. We saw how good Drew Dober was last week.
Did you ask if he fought?
Jay Ellis. I don't think he's on his resume. I'm taking a look here.
No.
Jay Ellis, let me pull up my guy Jay Ellis, just so I can give you his official record if you haven't heard of Jay Ellis. Hurricane Ellis. 16 and 108 losses in the New England regional scene. 16 and 108, good for a winning percentage that is suboptimal, I would say. And still going. How did he get to Cage Titans?
And for Brendan's professional career, 6 out of his 9 fights have been finishes in the first or second round.
Ugly. And a good test that I like to look at on the Contender Series is the last person that they fought before they got to the Contender Series or UFC around a 500 record. If so, they're just cans. And like John said there, you look at Morat's latest win, Lionel Young, 11 and 21 professional record, 39 years. Woof. Woof. And now he's facing Terence McKinney. I think they're afraid to put a lineup because you gotta make McKinney like minus 185, minus 200 in the first round at worst in this spot because it's just such a lopsided matchup.
And it still feels like free cash.
Yep, agreed. But the thing about Terence is he's tough to pin down with an exact outcome. Power in his hands. We saw that against Matt Frivola. Also pretty active submission game, 1 per 15 minutes.
He's gonna knock him out in the first round. He ain't subbing him.
You don't think
he's gonna literally? No, I think he knocks him out.
Let's see if we can get a trend going on him because maybe he alternates. It does depend on the matchup. Comes into UFC first.
I just think he's gonna look at this. I just think he's gonna look at this matchup of like, let's have some fun on the feet. You know what I mean? Like what's he gonna shoot takedowns in this matchup?
This is the weirdest trend because there are losses mixed in here. You ready for this? Yeah. Terence McKinney's UFC outcomes, either win or loss. Knockout, sub, knockout, sub, knockout, sub, knockout. I guess we're due for a sub.
That's sick.
If sub hits, that's the stupidest process that'll get for a bet all year because McKinney's due for a fight ending by submission. But we love T-Rex in that fight. And I think this is another fight where we might be chasing props on a favorite here because it's not forecasted to be overly competitive. I actually did dive into this one yesterday because I wanted to ask if Tainara Lisboa was for real. Some cool tidbits I uncovered there. She's taking on a newcomer here, Ravena Oliveira from Brazil, 7-1. All 7 of her wins by finish, so she's pretty physical for this division. I would say she looks stunning, but that beside the point. Tainara Lisboa, we saw her back in Charlotte against Jessica Rose Clark. Submitted her in the 3rd round, which was kind of not what we expected from a 2-time World Muay Thai champion finding a sub. So showed to be pretty well rounded. What are you thinking here, bud?
Take a guess at what the odds are of this fight to not go the distance.
Well, I saw Lisboa sitting specifically around like -125 inside the distance, so I'm guessing it's like -150 for the fight to not go the distance.
-165. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I cheated because I saw Lisboa. I saw some people tracking bets already. If you got the best of the number with Lisboa, inside the distance around -125, 125, I think it probably is going to close closer to -150. Start gap and experience here. Lisboa actually fought Valentina Shevchenko in Muay Thai. There was actually a controversial ending to that fight. Like, it was competitive enough that Tainara thinks that Valentina would duck her in UFC. Now, Lisboa fighting at bantamweight's a larger athlete, so Valentina was smaller in that fight, kind of like what we saw against Nunes. But that's the type of Muay Thai you're talking about as a striker on the feet. She showed a lot of those weapons with the submissions. She submitted Jessica Rose Clark.
Right.
I would more so lean toward a knockout in this fight because Oliveira, she is going to want to trade on the feet, but at the same time, that's where Lisboa, I think, is more dangerous because Oliveira's level of competition is dreadful. No idea who any of her opponents are. Again, hovering around 500, 4-3, 3-2, very common for women's MMA. I think Oliveira physically might have a ceiling to be a UFC winner, but Lisboa's ceiling seems much, much higher.
Yeah, no, I agree. I watched a little footage on these girls, and Oliveira just looks like the slower striker on the feet. Agreed. Too.
100%.
And I think Lisboa the knockout is +350 and her submission is +200. So
that's recency bias.
Yeah, I do think the value is on the KO prop here. We'll see what the FanDuel number is here later in the week, but
that's
just something to look at.
That's nothing but recency bias because, like, I know she split 3-3 down the middle in her MMA career. She has a background in Muay Thai. She would prefer to strike if given that opportunity. Honestly, she was dominating that fight on the feet against Jessica Rose Clark and kind of just showed her stuff. I feel bad because I liked Jessica Rose Clark. She really got in her own head. She got submitted by 2 straight arm bars, and then she nearly gave up a third to Lisboa. She was not recognizing those setups at that point. I think she was really mentally not all there at the end of her UFC run. And Lisboa took advantage. So you like Tainara here as well.
Yeah, I probably like her inside the distance. Honestly, I don't know what that number is going to be. I think
knockout around 3-1 is very enticing for someone with her.
Now Oliveira, her one loss was by submission, though.
Interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because a majority of her fights have ended by knockout. I wouldn't be surprised if she's the weaker grappler here. We may get to a point where it doesn't even matter, though, because it's just the first round and Lisboa is better everywhere. Lisboa is very active on social media. She's someone that the UFC would like to gas up in a similar way where they gassed up Alex Pereira when he got here because he was a rival of Israel Adesanya before we got into UFC. Lisboa has that background with Valentina. I wouldn't be surprised if they ran that back before she retired.
I just followed her on Instagram. I'm looking at her page right now.
It seems like a very bubbly, happy girl.
Good energy.
I think UFC really appreciates that, and she's very marketable, so that's a good thing as well to know that she got a good. And by the way, her original opponent in this fight was actually someone that lost to Melissa Dixon, so she was a schedule to win here, whether it was Oliveira or. Don't make me say I don't know her name. I think it's Daria something. It's very Russian, and I don't know how to pronounce it. But this new opponent, I can. Ravena Oliveira, I don't think she's going to have much success on Saturday. So let's move on here to a fight that we've been talking about a lot of favorites. I actually think this one will be more competitive at the very least, no matter which side you like. Downtown TJ Brown taking on Darren, the Damage Elkin, my guy with the pound-for-pound worst tattoo in UFC. We kind of know Darren Elkin's game at this point, right? He's kind of a gas tank, chin, all heart. Remember, he was getting absolutely destroyed in his last fight in Orlando last year by Jonathan Pierce. He's actually been off since that fight because he just took so much damage against JSP, completely bleeding out. You and I both love JSP, so I don't really hold that against him a ton. And then we last saw TJ Brown against Bill Algeo in Kansas City earlier this summer. Had a pretty good first round, definitely took the first round. Algeo rallied hard in the second, ended up knocking him out. So these guys both on a losing skid entering this one. Elkins, the senior man by 6 years, a lot more experience in the division, but Brown kind of a physical guy. What are you thinking here? Because I was actually able to run my model for this fight, and I'll let you know what I found.
Yeah, I kind of like TJ Brown by decision in this fight.
Interesting.
I think he's up to he's minus 220. I'm seeing minus 220 now in FanDuel. But you can flip that number to around probably plus 170 on the decision prop. And Elkins is pretty durable overall. He does take a lot of damage. But I could see TJ kind of edging out like a 29-28 decision maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the interesting thing, we saw Elkins, he got knocked out in the first round by Cub Swanson. And at 39 years old, I am a little worried about the chin for just one shot raw power. But TJ Brown doesn't have a submission yet. He's much more of a grappler type. At least he has been in previous matchups. Now he just kind of went to war with Algeo. It's interesting you say that. My model has that specific outcome, decision for TJ Brown, as the most likely outcome of the fight, 36.5%. I've got Brown at minus 105 with Elkins coming back at plus 105 with no hold, right? No VIG factored in. So I've got this a very close competitive fight. And I think the interesting thing here is Elkins, if this turns into a grappling match, we saw him just destroy Derek Minner. He wilted Derek Minner in a fight that he was losing, but just got tired. Minner, I think, tried 6 or 7 submissions, burned his arms out, and ends up losing to Elkins. The question is, how much does Darren have in the tank at this point? Is he able to have that sort of high output? Because the output was definitely reduced against JSP. At this point, I don't really know what I'm going to do with this fight, but intriguingly enough, you said decision. I got it 64.9% to go the distance. So I bet I'm going to be higher than the odds makers on that fight, especially when you've got a 40-year-old dude involved. There's a little bit of juice slanted toward the guy's going to get finished if Brown's a minus 220 favorite. Again, this is another guy that's picking up a lot of steam here. I don't know which side I'd take in this fight, but I do kind of like the over. I respect Elkins' cardio. I respect his chin. I would not be betting TJ Brown inside the distance here.
Yeah, let me see the fight to go the distance. It's like a pick 'em right now.
Yeah, I'm not surprised I'm showing value on that. Elkins he got starched by Cub Swanson. Cub guy with a lot of power, especially at 145. It's interesting because if Elkins ends up losing, does he retire in this fight? If he ends up winning, does he retire in this fight? It's very possible. Now, Brown, he's got a weird competition level. Like, he fought Eric Silva. We haven't seen him again, so we really don't have a measuring stick there. Loses to Shaila Nerdembeka. Nerdembeka controlled that fight pretty much throughout. Wins over Charles Rosa, Eric Silva, Kai Kamaka, Dylan Lockhart. So this would be by far the biggest feather in his cap, even though Elkins is approaching 40. I wonder if that level of competition is a bit fraudulent when Elkins has been fighting Nate the Train, Cub Swanson, Jonathan Pierce. Like, there's a little bit of a competition gap at play. So I'm very hesitant on which side I'm thinking in this fight, but
yeah, no, it's really just about the age and the durability.
Agreed.
I mean, he did take 10 months off. He fought in December against Jonathan Pierce. So,
and despite what you and I love to do, we don't have to fire at every fight.
Tell me that for Contender Series. I can't tell you how glad I am that Contender Series, that was the last week.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss my Tuesday night sweats. My wallet will not. So
that's so brutal.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. But it's already featured prelim time here, and it is a good one. A lot of people circling this as the people's main event here between two insanely good bantamweight prospects. Christian Rodriguez taking on Cameron Simon. Your guy, Clint McLean, works a lot with Bet Openly, a diehard podcast, already 6 units down on C-Rod. He is confident. I don't know how you could be that confident when these guys have both been pretty good so far. Do you have a lean here?
This fight has had my head spinning all week. It really has, because I actually think this is a really even fight. Like, I think both these guys, grappling and striking, I think are very similar. Like, I think Cameron's faster and more dynamic on the feet, but I don't think his striking's that much better. And I think both these guys are very, very even. Like at those numbers on the screen, I have to take the plus 144.
Yeah.
I don't think is that really what the odds are right now?
So Simon shortened today to plus 124, so a little bit back his
Yeah.
way. This was a dead pick 'em on Monday, moved in Rodriguez's direction. Now a little bit Simon. I think that tug of war is going to be kind of the way this line moves all week because you've got very smart, respected sides on both sides of this fight.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is a tough fight. I look at it as a pick 'em and plus money on. Like if I get 125 on either guy, I would literally take the guy at 125. So this is a tough fight. I could see it going the distance. But then again, nothing would surprise me in this fight either.
Yeah, I think the competition levels are very equal. I will say that I believe Cameron Simon will be the better striker of these two, given that we've seen Rodriguez's success more so come in the grappling department. And to this point, Simon just a 41% takedown defense. So he's shown to be, he was able to be taken down by Steven Kozlow when we saw in that fight. It's kind of why I think I sprinkled Terence Mitchell by submission when he fought. It was a terrible bet. It was like 12-1.
Yeah.
I barely lost it.
You want to hear something funny?
Yeah.
On a DFS app today,
yeah,
I went on there and Christian Rodriguez had over under a half of a takedown.
Oh, that's free. That's absolutely.
I literally max bet it.
Yep.
And it's a DFS, so I have to put a second leg on there. I took a pick in the NFL game. 2 minutes later, it's off the board.
Yep, I bet it is.
And I put it in my chalkboard group. Everyone's going to hammer it, and then you know how it is. Everyone gets pissed. Oh, it's gone. What are they doing? Given a half a takedown prop on there. I could not believe my eyes. I wanted to put like thousands of dollars on it and just put like a $500 DFS play with the over half a takedown and then another play and then over half a takedown, another play, do like 5 or 10 tickets. But I mean, that's unbelievable. A half a takedown.
Yeah. Especially so that I think I told you I didn't run my model for this fight because these guys have been fighting cans. So I might actually get a worse answer than if I just try to do this on my own. But I feel like this fight, I'm leaning more so toward the distance because Simon has not been a prolific finisher as the striker. He went the distance with Martinez, even though he knocked him down. Nearly went the distance with Kozlow. I forget his UFC debut at this point, but he went the distance there as well.
Joshua Wang Kim.
Yeah, Wang Kim. Yeah, and wasn't Wang Kim the Contender Series? Got a third round.
That was Contender Series.
Yeah. Yep. I'm forgetting one of Simon's fights in there that he went the distance.
No, that's it. That's it.
Oh, that's it.
In the UFC, he has 4 fights.
Oh, okay. Word. And then he of course
fight, and then Terence Mitchell.
Yeah, can't really
gain no stock from that round 1 knockout.
And then you look at Rodriguez on the other side, absolutely no shame losing to Jonathan Pierce, but Josh Weems, don't know a ton about at this point. Reyes Cortez Jr. on the Contender Series. He lost again on the Contender Series, so that's not a great sign. And then, of course, the win over Raul Rosas, who's a guy that you and I have a lot of respect for, but, top prospect for top prospect. Rodriguez is a grown man at 25. Rosas is a kid at 18. I think we saw him struggle with that physicality. I think Christian.
But he did. Yeah. Rosas did have legitimate submission attempts early.
Yeah, early.
And Rodriguez just defended. And then, I got to be honest. I feel like Simon by decision is going to have some value there.
Agreed. And
I think he's plus 250 to win a decision.
This isn't very good process, but I also, when momentum in camps is high, I kind of want to ride that. Dricus du Plessis is on an insane heater. So is Cameron Simon. There's a ton of confidence coming out of that camp from South Africa. I don't, especially if I can get it at plus money, I really don't feel like paying juice to fade it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
I honestly think I might sprinkle on the Simon by decision prop.
That's
if
kind
I can
of
get
where
that between 250 and 300, somewhere in that range.
Yeah,
that's worth half a unit to me.
I don't want anything on this fight that would hurt me to lose because I just want to watch it and enjoy. I'm going to grab some popcorn. I'm going to take a light because I can't wait to see who wins out here. But
yeah,
I better not grab popcorn in this next one up because it's not going to last very long. It nearly did it when we had that odd submission stoppage at Noche UFC. They're running back Edgar Shirez and Daniel Lacerda. I tried to talk you into Daniel Lacerda. He had his neck in Edgar Shirez's arms and basically was or was not submitted. Some people say he woke up. Some people say he was never out. It was very controversial for a reason. They're going to run it back. Yeah. my question for you for this fight is, how much stock do you put into that first bout and what you saw? Or do you think, because Shirez is now 100 points more expensive as a favorite than he was because he nearly got the finish there. How much stock do you put in that fight?
Yeah, I think deservingly so that number went up. I mean, he looked really good.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just so tough too. And like Lacerda, we all know Lacerda's chance to win is in that first round.
Yep.
And if he can't do that, I just don't know how he wins. You know what I really want to look at is a fight to start round 2 and see what that number is, because you got two guys that just fought each other for a little bit of time.
Yep.
And now they might be able to alter their game plan here. And Lacerda is seeming to be a little less crazy and a less burning of his tank early. So like if that's plus money, maybe you look at that. I don't know what do you think that's gonna be?
You know, Matty, it's so interesting that you said that. I think that if Lacerda kind of came out like a madman, like he had in previous fights, Shirez definitely left openings on the feet. Like Lacerda connected a couple of times, but he was very measured. He ended up just kind of sleepwalking himself into that submission attempt. I wonder if he goes harder here. I really do. But you're right. You're so right about that familiarity element. I think the most recent example we have of this, where we have a no contest immediate rematch, was Justin Taffa and Austin Lane, but that was at heavyweight. Like those guys were favored to end in round 1 anyway. So it's like, can we really take a ton from that? I would like to see Lacerda. I like him even more at this number. He's a shoot-a-box guy. I still don't trust Shirez in the striking department. I know it's very possible that Lacerda can walk himself right into a submission again. But at the same time, I'm getting a better price here on the off chance that he doesn't. So I have not changed, where I still kind of like Lacerda. I hope he makes an adjustment to be more aggressive. But the fight to start round 2 is a very interesting angle, Matty. I'm going to have to hear you out on that.
Yeah, I want to see what that number looks like. But this is a tough fight for me. My gut says Edgar's going to get it done again, though.
Yeah. What do you think I could get on Daniel Lacerda by decision? It's probably going to come back at like 18-1, right?
Yeah, I would imagine.
And at the end of the day, this is bantamweight. It's, you know, it's not always that. If he comes out measured, maybe even takes better care of himself. But like at the same time, I'm looking on my sheet right now. I see a lot of red in the defensive columns for both guys. Not very sure that it's going to go very long.
Yeah. Now, if it does get to round 2, you can get Edgar round 2 submission plus 800 and round 3 plus 1200.
How would you rather bet Shirez, submission or knockout?
Yeah, I almost feel like the TKO this time could be.
Yeah, I feel like submission is going to be overpriced because of the ending of the first fight.
Right. Here, let me take a look at that. So, yeah, so they're pretty neck and neck. The round 2 KO is 900. The round 2 submission is plus 800.
Okay, well, if that's the only difference, Shirez regionally has a lot more submission success, 1.3 submission attempts per 15. So, and by the way, Lacerda didn't look like he was defending that properly. And by the way, probably not a good idea to let your arm go limp to try to relax in a submission and make the referee think.
Yeah, after rewatching that, like the ref probably should have just touched his arm a second time.
Yep.
Just to be sure, but you also, I don't think, can fault him for it.
Yeah. Interesting that we see some Lacerda love in chat. Like I was on that side the first time around. I don't think it was overly disappointing, but you know, we'll see how this plays out in the rematch. It's definitely going to be weird and different. But Matty, this is another fight that I wanted to talk to you about because he's a guy that you and I were on last time we saw him a couple months ago. Andre Petrosky, we loved him inside the distance. You had a round 2 finish. He knocked him down. Gerald Meerschaert on the ropes.
I was disgusted with how that fight went.
Yeah.
I was absolutely disgusted, and maybe to the point where now I want to fade the shit out of Petrosky in this fight. Like I love Michel Pereira in this fight. I love him here.
Interesting.
I really, really do, because I think that he could catch him on a coming in on a takedown attempt.
Yeah.
And I also think he could win a 30-27 decision. Like the striking of Andre looked so bad and unnatural in that fight. And I know Michel's coming up in weight here.
It's at 185.
He's a big guy though. I actually think it's one of those fights where isn't he coming up in weight though?
He is. So Pereira's fought his whole career at 170. He missed weight.
Yeah, this is at 185. Yep. But I do believe that it's one of those rare scenarios where the guy, like look at Pereira versus Adesanya.
Yep.
You know, like I do think in this scenario, like Michel coming up in weight, he's still going to be the bigger guy. We're around the same size. I think his striking is way more dynamic. He's unpredictable on the feet. The only thing that does bother me a little bit is that result with Andre Fialho, how he couldn't finish him or didn't finish him.
Yeah.
I don't want to say couldn't, but that's the thing. But I could see a world where Andre shoots a takedown and gets a knee to the face or something.
Yeah.
Just because I think he's going to be a chicken with his head cut off on the feet. Like I don't think his striking looked. I don't think he's had enough time to improve it from that last performance against GM3. Yeah, and I think this is a great matchup for Michel Pereira.
Yeah, and you look, I have Pereira highlighted on my thing, and then I ran my model, and it was kind of interested in Petrosky, but I'll tell you why. It's very flawed because the analytical profiles of these guys are kind of weird. I think Pereira sometimes can mess around, and that's kind of what I attributed that Fialho fight. If you remember, that was just on a few days' notice, so Pereira didn't have a lot of time to prepare for him. I think if they fought again, Pereira would finish him.
No, and he did outstrike him 107-45.
Yeah, it was a dismantling, whether he got the finish or not. And Fialho showed a better chin early in his career with UFC than later. But Pereira, my concern is that, he kind of messes around a little bit, and Petrosky ends up getting top position where he is pretty good. But you were talking about the largest discrepancy of skill in this fight is striking Pereira against Petrosky. And to this point, Pereira has not been submitted in UFC. He's actually shown a submission himself. He's shown pretty good defense. I think however this fight plays out, the one dude's going to look minus 500. It'll be obvious in hindsight. Like, why didn't I take that guy? Pereira's takedown defense, not incredibly tested, like well in UFC, but it is 94%.
94.
And like, I will admit Petrosky is the bigger guy, probably going to have the most efficient, best takedown attempts. But honestly, Petrosky had problems getting Mearshart to the ground, who has notoriously terrible takedown defense. I think a little bit this is Petrosky fought Michael Gilmore. He fought Hugh Yaozong. He fought a lot of guys that are not UFC caliber guys before he started to get into the teeth of the roster here. Michel outdueled Ponzinibbio for 15 minutes. And that's why I highlighted him, is he's the superior striker. I trust his grappling enough to keep him safe on the ground. This price is going way high really, really quickly. And believe it or not, Pereira opened at some offshore books around like plus 170. He's now a minus 200 favorite as you get onto FanDuel. So my model sees it. What do I have Pereira? I think I have Pereira at minus 134. So like I have him as the favorite in this fight. Intriguingly enough, 58.9% to go the distance. And that's because Pereira doesn't have a very strong knockdown rate historically. I wouldn't expect that to go up at middleweight. How you see knockdown rate
plus 120 to go distance.
Yeah. Intriguing because I think a lot of people are thinking Petrosky by sub, Pereira by knockout. Like these guys are like kind of warriors, but at the end of the day, Michel kind of has done some of his best work in UFC as a point fighter. But if you loved Michel in this fight, that's the conviction that I wanted, because I feel like my analytical model is a little flawed because of how bad Petrosky's early competition was. I think I'm going to take Demolador as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love minus 200 on the money line. I think you have to kind of figure out here if you want to take him on a decision or on a knockout of some sort. But what's interesting is, I was going to say his knockout prop is only plus 200, but his decision is plus 325. Like, I don't know how you don't, the one thing I do want to look at is, how do you feel about Andre's gas tank in this fight? Because the round 2-3 TKOs could be really interesting for Michel.
That's what I was going to say, is that Petrosky was throwing such ill-advised bombs that he gassed himself in that Mearshart fight in just a few minutes. And Sebastian asks us, talk about this being a late notice fight. It's at 185. I think that heavily favors Michel, because Michel's not going to cut nearly as much weight to get down. Petrosky's every bit of natural. Pereira cut a ton of weight to get down to welterweight. It'll be an easier cut for him to get to 185, whereas Petrosky trying to get down on normal notice. And I actually don't know. I'm checking to make sure this isn't a catch weight. No, it's listed at 185. So Petrosky's got to go all the way down here on just a couple weeks' notice. I think that's a terrible thing for him. He's been kind of a gas bag so far.
Yeah, you think his chin's going to give it? I mean, look at his resume in the UFC. He hasn't really fought many strikers at all.
Yeah, he hasn't really fought any. And the reason why is because he's a nightmare there. Whereas, like, I'm intrigued why he took this fight, to be honest with you. I don't know, maybe if it was like a he felt like there was a hole in Michel's grappling game, but Michel's been very solid defensively there. And Pereira here, by the way, was preparing for Marc-Andre Barrios, a striker, but did have some jiu-jitsu. So
right. I would take Mark against either of these guys.
Oh, that's very intriguing. I think I would like Michel against Marc-Andre Barrios. I think Barrios gotten some guys recently that are more lumbering. I think we're underrating how fast Michel could be at 185. He's going to be he was fast at 170.
That's a good point.
He's going to be very fast at 185.
Yeah, no, I agree. I want to see the round 2-3 knockout. Yeah, I am nervous though that Trotsky shoots a shitty takedown in that first round. And gets caught with something coming in.
That'd be very intriguing. Any concern here for a 17-month layoff for Pereira?
That's a good point.
I just I don't know how much stock to put into it because it doesn't really matter to me. Like I ring rust is a thing against certain. I think if Pereira was fighting at 170 at his competition level, I'd have more concern. But the reality is he's done a lot more at the UFC level. He beat up Chaos Williams.
Santiago.
He
does have that round 1 flying knee against Danny Roberts in 2019. It was debut.
Right. And that's kind of that was kind of his thing early, is he was kind of like the showman, the idiot, and then Tristan Connolly out gas tanked him for that huge upset win in Canada. And then he got disqualified against Diego Sanchez. Michel Pereira was early in his career good for dumb things. I've learned to trust him bit by bit more as he's kind of tempered it back and taken it a little more seriously.
All I can say is I cannot get out of my head how bad Andre's striking looked.
It was so bad. And he gassed himself out, just throwing nothing but empty bombs. Pereira will dodge those no problem if Mearshart was able to.
I don't think Andre's going to be able to hit him on the feet. I really don't.
Agreed. It could be like a 8% striking accuracy type of thing.
Yeah.
So
I think you got to look at on DFS platforms what his under is on strikes.
Yeah, I do think that on both sides there we could get good value in a DFS setting, just because it's it could be a lopsided matchup one way or another. But Matty, I told you this. Simon Rodriguez was the first fight. I was like, I want to hear what you think. This is another one. Is a bantamweight banger on the division that brings them out. Jonathan the Dragon Martinez taking on Adrian Yanez, coming off that tough loss in your backyard in Miami against Rob Font, lost in the first round by knockout. Martinez just had that war with Said Nurmagomedov, came out ahead. So this right on the fringe of the rankings, bud. Nearly a pick 'em. It still is a pick 'em. It stayed a pick 'em because we got action on both sides here. Which side are you leaning?
I think Jonathan Martinez is really good, man. I think he's really well rounded. And he's got the kickboxing. He's got the kicks to go with it. And we saw Adrian Yanez kind of even back in the day against Randy Costa. He got lit up in that first round. I saw all the warning signs. I saw all the warning signs with Adrian Yanez, and I swear to God, I ignored them. And I bet him against Rob Font. And I'm not making that mistake this time. So for me, it's either Jonathan Martinez or pass in this fight. I think Adrian's boxing is incredible. His hand speed, his boxing in general is just insane.
Yep.
But I think Martinez is a little more well-rounded, and I think he could get him. I really do. But this is a really tough fight to predict here. I mean, Martinez has fought some solid competition.
Oh yeah. Definitely. He had Cub Swanson in there, got Saeed in his last fight. Davey Grant, by the way, in a fight he was winning until Grant can't come from behind knockout. These guys have actually both fought Davey, but a better version of Thomas Almeida when Almeida kind of wasn't broken. So Jonathan's been around for a while. Interesting, he started as this guy. The book on Martinez was you could just take him down. It'd be no issue. He's actually worked his way up to a 69% takedown defense, which in a sample as big as his is not bad. Now, you don't have to worry about that here. Yanez, 0 UFC attempts. He's not taking it to the ground. That's just not what he does. I think Martinez is the more diverse striker here. You see that in their accuracy a little bit, where he throws more leg kicks, throws more high kicks, throws more kicks in general. Yanez kind of works behind his hands. And my model is giving 100% of the grappling upside to Martinez in this fight, which I think is fair, just because we haven't seen Adrian do it. And I was on Rob Font in that because it was a big step up for Yanez in competition. I totally spaced the Randy Costa fight until you mentioned it, where he just kind of used his cardio to survive Costa, who just doesn't manage his gas tank whatsoever.
Yeah,
I will say he could have some success early. Martinez is a little bit more measured. He's never broken 100 significant strikes in a fight, but
I do agree. I think round one is Adrian's round. I think that you could 100% live bet Martinez after that, though.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Jonathan's gotten a little money today. He's sitting at -122 on FanDuel Sportsbook right now. So,
yeah, and all the props are up on FanDuel for this one. Yeah. Right now, Adrian by knockouts +240, Martinez by knockouts +290, Martinez by decision +270, Adrian by decision +380. The over/under 2.5 rounds. The over is plus money, +108 on the over. The under -136.
That's intriguing. Yanez has this massive knockdown rate. I've got this fight. Let me take a look here what I had it. I've got this fight at 50.8% to go the distance. So I would take plus money on the over. Because I've got it a little bit over 50%. Yanez has a 2.07% knockdown rate, which, by the way, is massive. Now, you look who they came against. He knocked out Tony Kelly. Remember that lopsided first-round fight? I think he also
loved that fight.
Victor Rodriguez, 0-2 UFC, knocked him down. Gustavo Lopez, not a UFC winner, 2 knockdowns. So, like,
and then Costa, yeah.
He really hasn't had that same level of power as he's moved into this higher echelon, but like it is something to consider when Martinez was dropped and knocked out by Davey Grant. I think Martinez lost a decision to Andre Ewell, who's a guy that I still think is kind of underrated. Ewell's last 2 fights in UFC were Gutierrez and Charles Jourdain, and they said goodbye. Those are 2 pretty hard fights for a guy, and I think Ewell may have been seen goodbye to. I still lean Jonathan if I get close to a pick 'em because he got the grappling upside. I actually have Martinez at -188 here. So that gives you an idea of how strongly analytically I'm leaning toward Jonathan.
Wow. Yeah, Adrian in the first round on the knockout is +600. I don't think that's a terrible shot to take if you're gonna back him.
Yeah, he's been kind of first round knockout oriented when things have kind of snowballed downhill. And let me look. Has Jonathan had any fights where he just got blitzed from the beginning? Because Davey Grant was kind of a surprise shot. That's the only loss by finish in Martinez's career was Davey Grant. And like he won that first round. He dropped Grant. Like I thought the fight was going to end. And then Davey came from nowhere in the second round. And I had Davey's money line that night. So I remember it vividly going, no, but it's like, I think Martinez is pretty durable. So if Yanez, I'm a little concerned Yanez uses up his gas tank trying to get him out of there early, and then Jonathan can take over later. Jonathan has a way of just kind of controlling the pace. Did that against Alejandro Perez, just kind of marches to the beat of his own drum. I think he threw nothing but kicks against Perez. I don't remember him landing a single strike with his hands in that fight. So really, really interesting. And by the way, I think it helps that Gutierrez is going to be there. To me, Jonathan Martinez, Chris Gutierrez, I'm a Denver guy here. I live here in Denver. Those to me are the 2 best guys that they have out of Factory X. Them and Royval are really the guys that you'd consider the super high level guys coming out of Factory X, and the A team's headed to the Apex this weekend.
For sure.
So, co-main event time. I wish that was the co-main event, but I guess we kind of have to have rankings in the co-main event if they're there. This is technically a ranked battle at women's flyweight, even though we're not really talking title picture. Jennifer Maia taking on Vivi Araujo here. We've seen both of these ladies plenty. I wouldn't say there's a lot of memorable mixed in here, a lot of decisions. In fact, each of their last 5 fights respectively have gone the distance. So if you're looking for an under here, it might be very, very high, like a plus money, because a lot of people are expecting this to go the distance. My model has strong thoughts about this fight. I'm curious if you do.
Yeah, I like Jennifer Maia by decision. I think it's even money right now too, or roughly. I do think that's the way to play this fight. But
what about Maia do you specifically like? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, I just think I just like her striking on the feet. I like her level of competition, but this is not. I mean, she does have some. I mean, she went the distance with Valentina.
Yeah,
that was in 2020.
Went the distance with Chukagian twice as well.
Yeah. What is so? All the FanDuel odds are on this one. Let me pull it up. So the over 2.5 is -450.
It sounds about right.
Yeah, Jennifer Maia by decision -110, and then her by submission +1,000. Her by knockout is +1,400.
Just curious, what do you have Araujo by decision coming back at?
+220.
+220. You're about to be totally shocked when I give you let's see, plus 220. I've got Araujo
Yeah.
by decision at minus 119. And the reason I like Vivi is because Maya's fought a lot of strikers. Like she fought Chukagian. Shevchenko didn't take a very wrestling heavy approach against her. She has just a 57% takedown defense. And really where Araujo's run into problems is when she can't get to her wrestling because she has a 48% takedown accuracy. She's been very efficient in some fights. If you remember her ragdolling Roxanne Modafferi at all, Modafferi, I think I mispronounced that. She's been retired a couple of years. I forgot how to say her name, but she really was able to get to her wrestling very easily in that fight. Maya's had those shortcomings before, so I think Vivi will try to get to her wrestling early in this fight. She should have some success if the efficiency numbers are any key. I think the reason you see this so expected to go the distance, Maya, the better striker, never had a career knockdown in UFC, not really shown a lot of power. And Araujo, not a lot of submission volume, 0.6 attempts per 15.
Crazy.
So, I think you're looking at decision props. I will have shamefully multiple units on Vivi by decision if it's at plus 220 when I've got it at minus money. And my consensus agrees with my brain where I think Araujo should have some success. I think there's some recency bias here. Vivi took on Amanda Hebos. I'm going to pull up Amanda's takedown defense really quick because it's exceptional. 88%. Then I had Alexa Grasso in the fight before that. You see how good Alexa is on the ground as well.
Right.
So Jennifer Maya,
she's a good point. That's a good point.
Like Jennifer Maya, she submitted Joanne Wood, who is not a very strong grappler at all, but she really hasn't ever taken the fight to the ground by her own volition. So I think we actually have like a striker wrestler dynamic here. I would take plus money from a side for either one, but I think I'd rather just take that Araujo by decision prop when my model has this 92.8% to go the distance. So I'm actually showing value on minus 450. I don't know where it would come from because Maya has shown some BJJ chops, especially against Valentina. I think Araujo is pretty solid, 55% striking defense. I would be stunned by a finish here. But I also said that in Rodriguez-Waterson. And what did Rodriguez do? She just elbowed her in the face until Waterson.
Yeah, but at the same time, we knew deep down that she had some power. Like Marina, like this fight, you just don't see that. So the fight to go the distance is minus 380.
Yeah.
So that's probably a solid parlay piece if you're showing it at 93%.
I think so too. I think when we get to building our parlay at the end of the show, we should take this over 2.5 rounds.
Yeah, I'm in for that 100%.
So, and we just get to root for boringness until we get to the main event here, which like my intro on FanDuel research for this fight is, sometimes we want those big fights in the main event, but these main event spots really shine a light on a couple of guys that maybe haven't gotten a lot of spotlight in UFC, and both these guys deserve it. Sadiq Yusuff taking on Edson Barboza. This is Barboza's second main event. It is Super Sadiq's first here. A couple of featherweight guys right on the fringe of the rankings. Exciting fighters from time to time. Maddie, who do you like in this fight, and what's your overall feel about this main event? I think it could be a banger.
Yeah, no, I agree. But you know what I think?
Yeah.
I think that we've had so many upsets in the main events that this is now the time people are going to be on the dog, and then Yusuff is going to win. I just think that's what we're going to see here, where the favorite finally wins in the main event. I mean, when's the last time the favorite has won in the main event? In the main event, we had Strickland beat Adesanya.
Yep.
And last week we had
Bobby, Matthias Gamrot. Grasso Shevchenko was a draw, so you can't. It was Cyril Gane. Cyril Gane in Paris was our last favorite.
There you go. So what, 5 weeks?
Yep.
5 straight weeks, the dog.
Yeah.
The favorite is not. So even in a draw, you can say 5 straight weeks, the favorite has not won the fight in the main event. That's crazy.
Yeah. That's wild.
This is
odds makers are so good at what they do. And like the interesting thing, where are you with Sadiq Yusuff? Because he has a really interesting resume where I invite anyone to go back and watch his fight against Arnold Allen this week. I think he was a victim of when we didn't really understand the scoring criteria, because in all 3 rounds, Yusuff was really the guy that was aggressing with strikes and damage. He may have gotten that nod if that fight against Arnold Allen took place in 2023. This guy'd be undefeated in UFC. Hilarious personality. He does like the fight previews where he's like, we got a white guy taking on another white guy. I like him. I like him a lot.
I like him too in this fight. I think he wins. It is 5 rounds, so we'll see kind of what that looks like for him. But I mean, in the Arnold Allen fight, he outstruck him 47-21.
Yeah, which is
he
low
got
volume.
taken down twice, but like It's very low volume. Yeah. But
I
no,
was
I mean, I like the Andre Feely win.
Mhm.
Outstruck him 73-49. Like he has some solid wins. The Alex Caceres fight is weird. It was a unanimous decision, but it was a close fight.
Yep.
But I think Caceres is a little underrated though.
He seems to fight those grinder fights. He just did it with Giga, where he's just always close. It's close at the end, and it could go either way.
Right.
But it's interesting that you like Yusuff. I do as well. I've got him at minus 212 here in this spot. I think when you and I start listing out the concerns with Edson, right? 37 years old. Takedown defense has been spotty at times, especially at featherweight. He lost to Dan Ige, lost to Bryce Mitchell. I think the most concerning loss was by knockout to Giga Chikadze. That's when that happened. We kind of thought Giga was like this big time prospect that was destined maybe for a title run.
Yeah.
A little bit, like we're a little bit lower on him. We think he's much more so in this tier now after he fought Caceres close, lost to Calvin Bader.
And you even look at his win against Shane Burgos hasn't aged well.
No, because Burgos doesn't look very good in PFL, does he?
100%. Yeah. No, I'm really liking Sadiq in this fight, bro. I think we should throw him in the parlay too.
Yep.
Minus 178 on FanDuel. I like that number a lot.
And
I mean, if it wasn't for Edson catching Billy Q in that first quarter, in the first in the first round, I just think that he would have lost that fight too.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Bryce Mitchell fight, he got starched on the feet against Bryce Mitchell early on. Like he recovered, but I don't know, bro. He has a ton of losses in the last 4 years. I mean, a ton of losses.
Is it accurate to say that Edson Barboza getting knocked down by Bryce Mitchell lost you and I a ton of money on Mitchell against Ilya Topuria? Because I thought Mitchell might have had striking success.
100%. 100%.
Like we thought 100%. Bryce Mitchell, but Barboza's chin has faded a little bit. You think of the miles on this dude going with Khabib Nurmagomedov. He fought Paul Felder. He fought Justin Gaethje. Like he fought Kevin Lee and lost to him. Like there's so many miles on Barboza at this point, making a tougher cut. I think Yusuff is a guy that my model certainly, and maybe just me personally, would favor over a lot of ranked featherweights. Like if you told me Sadiq Yusuff, Calvin Kattar, man, Kattar's defense with Yusuff and how accurate he can be with his hands, some of the submission upside, I'd be hard pressed not to take Yusuff in that fight. Like Sadiq this is an intriguing test for him. Allen was a lot better than we thought when he fought Arnold Allen, and you could have argued he won the fight. Are you thinking, what outcome are you thinking here with Sadiq? Because I've got some intriguing numbers from my stuff, and I'm curious to what your take is, because I don't have a lot of conviction about any of them.
I don't either. I think you just take the money line on him, honestly, because I just think it's too tough to predict the outcome on this with him. Even that, Alex Caceres is pretty durable, right? So his only time getting stopped was against Kron Gracie in round 1 in 2019 when he got submitted. He's been submitted 3 times in the UFC, years and years, 5 times in the UFC, but dating back to 2011. But as far as getting knocked out, he hasn't been knocked out.
Right.
So he's pretty durable on the feet. So the fact that Sadiq didn't finish him on the feet, it is what it is. But he did get a submission win in his last fight. He had a knockout win back in 2019, a knockout win back in 2018. I think you take him by KO or decision. Well, no, the submission would scare me too. I just take the money line. Yeah. I literally just take the money line in this fight because I have zero idea how he gets done.
Do we have official FanDuel props up for this yet? If we have it from Maya Araujo. So what are Yusuff's 3 outcomes: knockout, decision, and submission?
You want to hear something crazy? The most likely method of victory is Barboza by knockout.
That makes sense because that's his win condition, period. Right. I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Sadiq Yusuff by knockout is plus 260. By points is plus 280.
Okay.
And then by submission is plus 550. And then Barboza by decision plus 750.
Yeah, interesting. My model's got Sadiq plus 130 by decision, plus 700 by knockout, plus 740 by submission. So I'm showing value on both decision and submission there. But again, as we get back to the money line, I'm a little worried about Edson's chin, right? So would I really want to leave knockout out, especially when odds makers are telling me it's the most likely path for Sadiq? Barboza makes a lot of sense because I have that as his most likely outcome as well, a knockout, because I think he's got the puncher's chance. And by the way, Edson Barboza, 1.18% knockdown rate in his sample. That is tremendous, but we're not getting the best version of him here. So I understand that exact outcome coming out. Do you think Edson will be a popular dog here because of his name value, because 100%. Of the dogs? Yeah.
100%. That's why I said this is the one time in 5-6 weeks that the public is not going to be on the dog and the dog's going to lose. I love Sadiq on the money line here.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people know who Sadiq is either, because he really hasn't had any marquee spots. That Allen fight was at the Apex. Like, Sadiq 100%. Hasn't really been on any pay-per-views, so you and I are pretty aligned there. I think we've already got 2 building blocks that I think we're pretty much going to lock into our parlay here. We need to get back on track, because even last week's layup didn't go well. Grant Dawson let us down, just like just about everybody else in the MMA betting community. So, we
gotta build a parlay here that gets us in the green. So
yes,
we're 100% taking Sadiq Yusuff minus 178 as a leg.
Agreed.
We're gonna take the fight to go the distance. Jennifer Maia.
Yep.
That's minus 380 in that fight.
Yep.
We put this in here.
And then do we put one more chalky element in here, because we're at minus 103 with those 2 legs on FanDuel?
Yeah. I mean, Emily at minus 390.
You want to throw Emily in there instead of either Gutierrez or Lisboa, because it's all about plus 400 or minus 400. All of those are.
So I
feel more confident in Lisboa actually than Ducote.
I mean, I'm down to put them both in, because right now we're only at plus 147 with Emily in there as a.
Oh, okay. Leg. Yeah, I'm good with it. Hey, trusting women's MMA to not produce a massive upset. What could possibly go wrong?
So it's at plus 209 now. That doesn't get us even, bro. We need to get even or up. We're down 2.2 units.
Let's see.
I mean, we could throw Irina in there at plus 122, and now we're talking.
We're really going to go with 3 women's MMA money line.
I mean, if we throw the plus 122 in there, we can get rid of some of the chalk. You know?
Oh, that's true.
So what if we did this? What if we got rid of the crazy chalk? We take Emily out. We take Lisboa out.
Okay.
And then we plus throw in Irina plus 122. Yes, sir. Plus 337. All right. You like that?
I do like that, just because I feel like Alexieva should be favored there. So like that would show a ton of value to me to get her at plus 122.
Yeah. All right. Here it is. Leg 1, Irina on the money line plus 122.
Yeah.
Leg 2, we're going the fight to go the distance. Jennifer Maia versus Vivi.
Yep.
And leg 3, we're taking Sadiq Yusuff on the money line.
Right.
The third leg, we're going to be sweating in the main event. What else is new? I always sweat in the main event on the last leg.
Yeah, I feel really good about Sadiq. No, first of all, he's been durable, so I think we're going to get at least 25 minutes against Barboza, and Barboza's getting up there, might slow down. I feel really good about Sadiq this week. The only question I posed to you, we had a comment in chat, McKinney by finish. We don't have a McKinney round 1 prop yet. Otherwise, it would probably be in here. Because it might be around like minus 150, minus 175. I would rather take McKinney but round 1 than Irina, but we don't have it. So why not go with Russian Ronda, man? I feel like sometimes people watch film against like crappy competition and they're like, oh my God, this girl's a world beater. And then she gets in the octagon and she can barely connect with anything. You know, it's like, I feel like that a little bit of that's going on with Dixon this week. Whereas Alexieva, we've seen her in Bellator, we've seen her in UFC, and she's a great grappler. So I feel good about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, we're typing this in the chat so people can see the parlay.
And the final odds are plus 337. We're only going to have it harder. If we don't win this week, we're only going to have it harder to break even as we move forward. So we better win this week, get us back in the green so we can start doing.
I do feel really good about this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel really good about this one too. It feels like that one that we had that hit. Last week, like we took so many chalky type of favorites. Like we took Dawson in there. I was like, okay, this feels too free. What's going on here? We're gonna have to sweat this one a bit. Maybe not the Maya or Ujo leg, but we'll have to sweat this one a little bit.
Yeah. The Grant Dawson one. Yeah. I mean, I want to say in hindsight it was stupid, but like we've never seen his chin get exposed like that. Like, how are you supposed to know?
Right. And even if he gets dropped, he went all the way out. Like if Dawson had got dropped in the early in that fight, he still probably would have had wrestling success if he was able to keep fighting, but he just went out. Bobby came to the octagon with a fire of 1,000 suns. But that's really all we've got here. UFC Vegas 81. I think it's not a bad Apex card. We've certainly had far worse. Hopefully we get back in the green there. And Maddie, any final thoughts? Because we've, by the way, UFC 294 back next week. We have a whole new main event. We have a whole new co-main event. We'll break those down next week. But some general thoughts, and just quickly about Volkanovski stepping in against Islam for the second fight.
Yeah. So the opening odds, Volk is around plus 170 and Islam minus 200. I got to be honest, Islam at minus 200 felt really cheap.
Yeah,
like I know the last fight was very close and competitive, and people. And I'm not saying I would bet Islam. Like I want people to understand what I'm saying. I just think the price tag of minus 200 is all about the fact that Islam just made it a close fight in the last fight and doesn't take anything into consideration that he's stepping up on short notice after a surgery and family stuff, and like not in fight camp. Like it's crazy going to Abu Dhabi like last minute. Like, I think the price tag on Islam was very inexpensive at minus 200. Now, if that said, I think Volk is live for a TKO based on what I saw in the last fight, So, but I just think the minus 200 price tag is inexpensive. Then you look at the Kamaru Usman Khamzat fight.
Yeah.
That potential fight was a pick'em 6 months ago. It was minus 110 either way. Yeah. Now, Kamaru Usman, I got to think that's the value side at plus 260. Simply because I don't think he's washed. I think Leon Edwards is really good.
Interesting.
I think it's the value side plus 260. Again, I don't know that I necessarily pick him. I'm just telling everyone that's watching where I think the value lies. I think the value is on an inexpensive price tag on Islam at minus 200. And I think the value is Kamaru Usman, who this is the second time he's ever been an underdog in his entire career. And he's fought a lot of fights. The only other time was against Tyron Woodley. He was plus 165, and we saw what happened in that fight. He won that fight. So I just think that it's crazy to give this guy plus 260, especially when we saw what happened in, the Khamzat Gilbert Burns fight. I was at that fight live. That was a war. And, Burns was finished by Usman. Say what you want. Say what you want about Usman's legs and his knees and his age. And but it was a head kick knockout that put Usman out. I don't think Khamzat has that in his arsenal, So I think it's going to come down to Khamzat's gas tank. I think round one could be pretty ugly for Kamaru, but it is a 3-rounder too. So I think the most likely outcome is Khamzat by decision. Truthfully.
We'll tune in next week for Maddie and I to argue because I think Leon Edwards is overrated and Kamaru's just washed. So we'll talk about that next week because we are on opposite sides. Yeah, and I'm kind of on the same page. I think Volkanovski, 10 days notice, gave a hell of an effort the first fight, but that was a full camp planning to be at 155, not coming off of surgery. Like, I love Volk. I think he's the best MMA fighter indisputably if he goes in on short notice and ends up beating Islam here.
Oh my God.
It is an uphill climb though, that we'll talk about next week. So exciting card next week, UFC 294. Next year, we won't even have drug testing in this sport, so it could get absolutely wild then. But we will tune in then. My guy, Matt Tanner, he'll have his full card out Friday or Saturday, right, for this weekend's card, UFC Vegas 81. Sure. My stuff at FanDuel.com/research/UFC. Until next time, guys, stay cool.